We have a quorum, so let's call the meeting to order. Beth needs to leave at 9:30 as perhaps at 9 o'clock, perhaps a few people do. So I was thinking of moving the trolley update to right after the review and vote on the minutes. And then move on to the economic vitality officer, so we can get the update on the trolley without that wandering down the agenda and Beth leaving. Has everyone had time to read the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Are there any edits to the minutes?
No.
Would anyone like to make a motion for?
So moved. I
Is
moved.
there a second?
Second.
There you go.
All right, so I'll go around. I say aye. Beth,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Jan,
Aye.
Jen McGonigal,
Aye.
Michael Lawson,
Aye.
Dawn.
Aye.
Thank you. The minutes have been approved. We will now move on to Beth for the trolley update.
Thanks, Marie. Thanks for filling Jen's shoes today too.
Her big shoes.
Her big shoes. So I thought I'd give everybody the updated trolley ridership numbers. So our first month of July, we had 186 riders. In the month of August, we had 250 riders. And September to date, as of I think it's about 2 days backed up for data, we've had 70. And most notable for September is we've only had 1 day with 0. So July and August, we had a handful of dates both months with 0 riders, but September, it's either 1 or 2. Hi, Mark. So the trolley is definitely not without its challenges. The employment status of this country has affected the drivers as well, especially since they have to have special skills for driving. So we have seen some different drivers coming into the rotation, which is a challenge for us for orientation and making sure they know the route and are comfortable in the town. Thankfully, Joseph's, the company, is our vendor, is a local vendor. So many of the drivers are familiar with the area. They may not know the exact route, but they are pretty good in keeping in communication with us. And it is definitely a learning curve running this program, but visitors are happy. It's a nice free service to run. I think overall, we're going to run another 2 months. We'll have learned a lot. And Erin Stevens and I are working really closely together to figure out what those learning things are so that when we do move ahead, we can sort of refine the services. Last week we had a driver call in sick. So we had people who were stranded at Orchard House. That was somewhat quickly remedied. But these are sort of the bumps in the road that we are prepared for and ready to work towards making that a smoother process. Definitely driver shortage is a big impact here, and something I don't know that we really considered at the early part, but it's good to see it being ridden. It's good to get the feedback from it. We're going to work on trying to get some more survey data because we have a ton more visitors now. So visitation is up everywhere, including international. I'm sending out a business newsletter today, I hope. But for those of you in Concord Center, I just want to quickly tell you that we have 15 buses coming from Trafalgar in the next 10 days. They came as a surprise yesterday, but I met the driver and I met the tour director, and I have the dates. So they will be stopping in Concord Center from 12 to 1:30 on each of the dates they're arriving. And I will send those out, but Dawn, you should be aware. Marie, obviously you should be aware for your staff. I've reached out to Camella's and some of the other restaurants to let them know that they plan to spread everybody out for meals and shopping, but an hour and a half is a really good time for them to be downtown shopping. And so I think that's a great amount of time for retailers to be able to be knowing that they're coming, because most of you are open then. So
Right.
We're not looking at buses coming in at 4 or 5 o'clock, which might impact your having to close early. So I will get that information out today. But they're a huge company. 15 more buses full of 50 people are coming this way in the next month or so.
Nice.
So, anybody
Beth,
have
I
any
have one
questions?
question for you about the trolley.
Yep.
Have you noticed any locals participating in the trolley use? Do you have a percentage between visitors and locals?
I don't have a percentage. We do know that there are locals riding it. Some of the feedback from locals is, I wish it would go to these other locations, which has been really helpful for us to think about how we can make this more than just suiting the visitors. So the visitors definitely want to go to these 6 places, but you know, we've had some locals say, oh, it'd be great if I could get to an appointment in Baker Ave or some other things. So that's the kind of data we're collecting now to be able to make sure that we can serve multiple populations when we are, if we're fortunate enough to get the grant money to do multiple shuttles.
Nice. When do you hear about the grant?
October is the last I heard, so I don't have a definitive date on the FLAP grant, but Erin Stevens has been in Europe and she's back next week, and she's our lead for that. So hopefully maybe she'll have some better ideas by our next meeting on when we might hear.
That would be great.
Hi, Jan.
Hi there. I just have a couple of questions, and one or two of them, Beth, we should talk separately on the phone because it really doesn't affect everybody here. But I just wondered if, well, when you're talking about having more than one trolley so locals can go to certain appointments, will they be on separate routes so that the visitors would be on one and the locals be on another, do you think?
Yeah, so when we did the study with the Volpe study, they actually predetermined a couple of other routes. They sort of called them an east-west and a north-south, so that there'll be intersections. So the Concord Visitor Center will be an intersection. So all the trolleys, all the shuttles will go through this downtown area, but then they will have different areas. And they'll also have different timetables. So they'll more meet the needs of commuters and be operational 7 to 9 a.m. And for visitors later, say, you know, right now we run till 4. So we want to make sure that we have West Concord and Concord Center covered till 6 or 7 so people can eat dinner. So that is part of the bigger project, is when we have multiple ones, we will have separate routes.
Yeah, that's terrific, because it sounds like people can then, if you're a visitor, you're not a local.
Right.
So you could drive one of them during the day, visit sites, and then if you want to do the other one in the evening and say, well, let's explore these other things, they can do that.
Yep, and we've had requests for private rentals already. So with groups coming in that might have limited mobility, or want to do Lexington and Concord, and there's just no option right now. So
Yeah.
There's a lot more we can do once we get through this pilot.
Well, I have a couple of things that we'll do separately. I'll give you a call. My challenge usually is I don't get the right, you have a lot of phone numbers. What number would you recommend I try you on?
I would always, my desk phone should be your first one.
Okay.
Which is 287-1064.
Okay, I'll try that first.
I know some of you have my personal cell phone too, and that's fine because Marie Foley knows how to find me no matter where I am.
Your personal secretary, Marie.
Yeah,
It goes both ways.
goes both ways. Does anybody have any other questions? You're welcome, Jen.
I have a quick question, Beth. I took the trolley on Saturday with a friend of mine, and the driver was giving us little tutorials every place we went. She was great, but she mentioned that that was unusual, that most drivers just drive, right? So
yeah, so that's Deborah. She is our star. I love
Okay.
having her here on the weekends. She drove for the Liberty Ride for 20 years. So she knows, and she loves Concord history. So
Yep.
she is an anomaly.
Okay.
A lot of the drivers, you know, because they've been rotating, it's hard to get them up to speed enough to give them anything more than basic information. So they're great
Okay.
about saying, hey, we're approaching Orchard House, you know, or hey, we're
Okay.
approaching the Concord Museum, it's closed on Monday. But they don't have that storytelling background that she has.
So looking forward, do you think that the trolley drivers will have that? Is that?
Yeah, we talked to Joseph's, the vendor, about
Okay.
at the beginning of the season and maybe periodically through doing like an orientation, having them come on the walking tour, having them go to all the sites and actually go into the museums and visit them so that they are more informed to be able to tell
Great.
visitors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions for Beth concerning the trolley?
If there are a lot of different drivers, would it work out to have a recorded program that they could punch in if they don't know?
Yeah, because we're using just the shuttle bus this year that didn't have that capability. But that is another option that we could do. Yeah.
All right, any other questions? All right. We will move on. For the Economic Vitality Officer. Thank you, Mark and Cato. The approved letter was sent to the town manager and the select board. And I believe, Mary, you probably all read it and digested it and chatted about it.
No, we haven't, it hasn't actually been in the select board packet yet.
Oh, it hasn't? Okay.
No, we had other things to, but I'll make sure it gets in there in the next few weeks.
It'll get there.
It will,
Um,
it will.
Jen had, well, I would like to say that we have Kristen Canty here also, who is, has thankfully joined us, and thank you very much, Kristen. We will get to you right after we discuss our little brainstorming session. She would like to talk about or fill us in on the needs that Adelita needed with the outdoor dining and her back and forth with the town as to how that went and what the end result was. But right now we started last time to discuss easy resources for us to do for people opening a business or being in business right now that wanted to go down a road, a different road, that they could be in touch with the town manager or at least the town and have a quick bullet point pamphlet or a person to direct to right away, to get their questions answered. That would be a little easier than them trying to navigate through the website at this time. There are still some issues with that. And I'd like to open it up for anyone to have comments, recommendations.
Is that, Marie, under the purview of the future Economic Vitality Officer? Or is that something that we should take on?
I think it, well, this is a tricky point because I think it is until the Economic Vitality Officer comes on. I understand that they will be putting out the information for applications in October. So the Economic Vitality Officer would, you know, is not going to start for a while. So this would be a stopgap measure. And I believe this committee was tasked with coming up with helpful solutions that we can recommend to the select board for them to move forward in filling that gap between now and then.
So we can recommend in general a bullet point, maybe contact list or flow chart, but we're not charged with crafting it and putting it on we can't put anything on the town website. So
Right.
I just want to be clear as to where our kind of responsibility has to end. So we can talk about what would be included in that document, make that recommendation to the select board. Is that what the conversation
I think
is
we
right
could
now?
make the, I think the purview is that we can make the recommendations as broad as we like, and then the select board will look at those recommendations and the town manager would have the final decision on what would be the final outcome until the Economic Vitality Officer is hired and starts.
I
You
think-
know, it would be nice to not have them start just from scratch, but to have some input into, this is a way, I believe, for this committee and for the town, government offices to have an input into how they should move forward with the Economic Vitality Officer should move forward. He would not have to start from scratch.
So perhaps we're looking for a draft of another letter to the select board recommending a flow chart, a
Right.
very simple flow chart for a new business. Okay.
I think the appropriate place to start here would be the town manager and copy the planning and land management department.
Okay,
The select board don't make these types of operational decisions.
no, I know, but I didn't know if they needed to make the
Well, you can
recommendation.
certainly copy the select board on it so that they're aware of the issue. But the people who can really do something about it is the town manager and the planning and land management staff.
I just had a quick comment that maybe a place to start would be to interview a couple of the newest businesses to see what they said was the stumbling block for them, or what they may have some actual points to say, well, it seemed like I was best off when I talked to this person first, or whatever. If we interview a couple of these newer entities in town.
That's a good idea. We also have Kristen Canty here, and I think this piece and the fourth item on the agenda both blend together. Because she's recently just been through trying to get the outdoor dining, which had been approved for her, but then it's my understanding, and Kristen can jump in on this at some point, that it was not approved in the long run when she had to go through the town, the changeover with the health department and whatnot. There are different messages coming out from depending on who you speak with in the town. So Jen wanted a recommendation to come from us and a discussion to come from us at this time to help facilitate the businesses along with the town, because there's so much that just isn't congruent between both of them. So a bullet point list that everyone could be on the same page in the town, she felt would be helpful. And I'm not quite sure where to start with that without ideas. Mark?
A little bit of a non sequitur. With regard to the new vitality officer, is there any sort of update as to a process, as to it's approved, it's funded, when that person will start being interviewed, a job description? Do you have any clarity on what this gap looks like and when, we're trying to fill in until?
Right. Mary, do you have any insight on that?
I think there's been nothing different since you met before, which is that Carrie LaFleur is in the process of basically reorganizing her staff. That Marcia's leaving in January, she's retiring. The last I heard was that there was going to be a job description and a posting in October for the economic vitality director. And he or she would be doing a lot of the work that you're talking about now. So everything I've said, I think you already knew. So the short answer is, Mark, no. But it's going to happen, and that's all I can say.
And
Well, to Mark's point, maybe we need to wait until we see the job description. Mark, I'm sorry I interrupted you. Go ahead.
So I guess the question is, do we know to whom that person, the EVO, is going to report? Is it directly to Carrie?
Okay, we've been very insistent that we want it to be part of the senior management team, but I don't know.
And I think that now my question relates to Marcia's replacement. And how do we communicate either objectives, goals, concerns for the person to replace Marcia, particularly if there's any scenario where the EVO sits in a Marcia structure as opposed to a Kerry structure?
I think you have. I think your letter pretty much captured the roles and the responsibilities that you hope this person assumes. Now it's really up to Kerry to design her organization. So I think you've done, the letter was great. It was very complete. It was comprehensive. And I think we have to wait and trust that she's doing what she can to, she's got a lot more things than just the economic vitality director to think about when she does this a reorg. So
No, yeah, so probably I wasn't articulate in my question. With regard to Marcia's replacement and the perception for the reality that that's a very important role, not only as to the role itself, but the tone that that person sets throughout that organization, to that department. How do we marry, check in and have a conversation as far as maybe things that we think work well and maybe things that could be improved after, sort of a long history of sort of observing Marcia and her department work in a constructive way, obviously.
well, I'm open to you brainstorming ways. One of the ways might be to invite Carrie here to your meeting sometime so you can talk with her. That's one thing that you can do. And I thought the letter was appropriate. I think that I don't know. I'm open to ideas, or I don't have a better idea than, I think they're very well aware. I can trust me that I think Carrie is well aware of what the business community wants, and she's well aware of a customer service focus in planning and land management. So rest assured that that's one of the goals of this reorg. But you can, I maybe having her come here and talk to her directly. She's a busy woman, but this is important too. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I do think that may be a good idea to invite Carrie here to the next meeting. Mark,
So, given that Carrie and Marcia, all those guys are super busy, I'm just wondering, as an interim step, I think there is some clarity on what the business community would like to see in Marcia's replacement as far as a background, a tone, a focus, and to really fulfill a key leadership role. So I'm just wondering, Marie, if we're gonna have some brainstorming, if really the brainstorming is really, putting some bullet points together and then being able to send Carrie that sort of message to say, hey, look, looking to use your time as efficiently as possible. Here are some ideas, here are some objectives we're looking for, does it make sense? And just to give her a heads up as to, the direction and things for her to noodle about before she shows, she attends a future meeting.
that's a good idea. So the meetings that we have coming up would be October and November. And I think we want to move forward on this as a team. I think everyone feels this way, that we would like to move forward on this as quickly as possible. Our next meeting would be in October. And my question to you pointedly, Mark, is do you think that is the meeting where we spend our time brainstorming on that particular issue to get the bullet points out to Carrie within the week after that? Because I think that's going to take some thought between now and then. We can discuss it today, of course, but then to formalize it would be nice to have time to do that.
So my answer is sure, with the caveat that I'm not volunteering.
Right.
I think the overarching point I'm trying to make to the committee and to Mary in particular is that I continue to think tone and message is important. And I've already heard sort of rumblings as to, Gabby's successor and what's going on there and other issues. So again, I sort of view it as getting the right message to the select board, having the select board and Carrie set the tone, having that tone percolate down through the organization, so there's a consistency. And if we're ever to be able to achieve that, I think we'd be achieving a lot. So that's my broad opinion as to, you know, the importance of having Mary here, the importance of working with the select board, the importance of partnering with Carrie and sort of trying to help her and have her help us and educate us as well. Setting the right tone. And I'm not being negative, I'm just already starting to hear issues where maybe messaging and tone isn't consistent, that's all.
I agree. Does anyone have thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'd like to add to that a little bit that really the town bureaucracy is to provide customer service, and I think it should be looked at in that manner. When I was on the NRC, I think I made some changes there by trying to help people do what they wanted to do as easy as they could within the law, and not keep coming back month after month for a little more information, but ask for all of it the first time, so it was a simpler process for people and didn't drag on forever. I know John Minnie was very good about that when he was head of the building department, that he knew everything that could be done and what couldn't be done and what could kind of blend things. And I mean, one simple thing, when we were building the farm stand, he said the architect got all these shrubs and trees around, and take those off the plan unless you want to have them all installed before you open, because everything has to match the plan. And simple little things, you know, that customer service to help people work within the law.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else having thoughts on this right now?
I
Mike?
did.
Oh, sorry, Mike's hand was up first. Mike?
Yeah, just a quick thought. I'm new to your committee, so this may have already happened, but I kind of want to hear from Marcia before she disappears. You know, she's been involved in a lot of this stuff, and I think it would be good to hear from her what she thinks isn't working and what could be made better. And so I don't know whether she needs to come before the committee, but I'd like to hear her thoughts on this.
Marcia is usually here, so I'm surprised that she's not here today, but this is a busy time of morning for people, but I think that's a valid point, in that have Marcia here as more of a question and answer and an informational piece than participating in just, we've been pretty concentrated on the economic vitality officer before, but to get her input on how she thinks her position should be filled out.
I think that's a great idea, like an exit interview with the committee where we can be candid, you know, about what worked, what didn't work, and what she, you know, if she had a wish list that could be granted, what it would be. Just food for thought for us.
Yeah,
I
and to
think
get
Steve's
this
point-
sooner.
Steve's point about customer service is a good one. I think what we're really looking for in many positions is, you know, what ideally both committee members and residents of the town are, you know, solution makers, people to help find a solution, not simply say yes or no. But if the answer is no, well, let's look at the resources we have and add some creativity and figure out how to make it a yes. You know, what steps, what do we need to get to yes, rather than just, you know, no. So it's meeting people more than halfway.
Yeah, right now it seems to be either yes or no. So I think that's a valid point. Jan, you had something you wanted to say before? Oh,
We've lost her, I think.
yeah, well, she was frozen, so,
Maybe
so,
that would be a good, maybe hearing Kristen's experience
right.
would be an
I was
illustration
about
of
to
maybe
say, I
trying to
think
get to
this is-
yes.
This, I know the general public usually speak in at the end, but I think that this is a good point for Kristen to tell us what her experiences were. Kristen, do you mind joining on?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Last year we had it was very necessary to have outdoor dining. And so the town was great. They just dropped off all these Jersey barriers for us and gave us a little footprint. And this year, a lot of people still wanted to eat outside, and with our tiny patios, it just didn't allow for all of the guests that wanted to eat outside to do so. And the town, every other city in the state allowed their restaurants to have outdoor dining again. Boston was really supportive. And for some reason, Concord just didn't allow it this year. And they just said that they said that they were going to, but they were trying to figure it out. So we were just confused because all the applications were already there. It had already been done. We didn't really understand why we couldn't just do the same thing as last year, the same as in Boston. And they just said that they, I never received a response ever from anybody, but my general manager from Adelita, Jay, went down to town hall a few times. And the first time they said, yes, we're going to do it. We just don't know how it's going to look yet. And then the second or third time he went down, because we had everything ready to go. They said, we're just not doing it this year. We just can't get it together or something like that. So we just weren't allowed to do it this year.
Were you allowed to set up on your existing patio that you already had?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Our existing patio, yes. But last year we had all this infrastructure where we made a little garden. We had like lattice and plants and little fences to try to make and string lights to try to make these patios attractive, and people really enjoyed it. So and people were just used to it too. So this year, people, hopefully this will all end, but people were just upset. So, some people were upset. It's hard to accommodate people that still don't want to eat inside. So it would have been a really nice thing to have this year for those populations that still don't want to eat out, but don't feel comfortable eating inside.
So Kristen, I'm sure you had an economic impact from that for your restaurant, but can you explain to us a little bit about a little bit more in detail, the processes you needed to go through or that you tried to go through to get the answers from the town, and what departments you were speaking with the town?
Sure, it was directed with the town manager's office. They're the ones that were in charge. And so, for example, in the city of Boston, they just gave us an application very similar to the one I filled out in Concord last year. And just said, a little map about where we wanted to put the space. So I could just give them the exact plan from last year, little map of where they wanted to get the space. That's pretty much it. How many seats there were going to be, where they were going to be. It was a pretty extensive application just with our occupancy permit and what we were going to do. It's like we couldn't be over occupied. So we could just, on a nice day, if people wanted to sit outside, we couldn't seat inside. So you can never go over occupancy. We just had to block off tables. But that was easy because we just took our inside tables outside. So we didn't have the seats inside. We had them outside. So that's all they wanted to see was how we were going to avoid going over occupancy and exactly what the space was. And it's just an application that I needed to fill out in Boston. So I just kept waiting for the application. That's the process. And finally they said the application's not coming. So we're not going to do it this year.
All right, so you had no application.
Thank
How many times did you need to be in touch with the town to attempt to get answers in the application?
I emailed it twice and didn't hear anything. And then my general manager, Jay from Adelita, visited town hall 3 times. The first time they said it was coming, and then we were a little frustrated because in February, we had received Boston's application. So as soon as I received Boston, I reached out to Concord, and then we hadn't heard any. Then patio season should have technically started. I think it was either April 1st or May 1st. So it was already April. We still hadn't heard anything. And then they just said, we're not doing it. So,
Oh, boy.
or I think it was
And-
May, and we're still trying, and our patio was already set up in Boston and in every other city, pretty much. I don't know of any other city that didn't allow outdoor dining this year. And then finally by June, we really needed to start patio season. It's pretty short in New England. And then they just told us they weren't doing it in person, never in writing. We had to go, Jay had to go to town hall, and I personally never received an email or anything back saying that they weren't going to do it. I was confused though, because I went to Fiorella's last week, and they seem to have a pretty large patio, and they seem to have the Jersey barriers. It was at nighttime when I saw it, so I was going to go back and talk to them. So I didn't know if they got it somehow, but we were told we couldn't have it.
Right, I'm not sure either. Leslie is the manager there. If you needed to call and speak with someone specific on the location, at the location. What would be your initial recommendation to expedite and to change this?
I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah.
I think that they would have the same application from the year before. I think it was bandwidth, new people, a new changeover, and them not really knowing what to do it and just deciding not to get it off their plate. That seemed to be what it was, just not really knowing where to start. Because I did have.
Can I ask a quick question?
Mhm.
Because I'm sorry to be, I'm a little confused. I ate outside at your restaurant. So I'm, what is it that the town wouldn't facilitate?
Yes, last year we had an extensive parking lot because there is a large amount of people that want to eat outside.
Mhm.
So last year they allowed, and in fact, it's my existing parking lot. So my patio that was originally granted, which is just the gated black patio.
Yeah.
We do have a patio at both restaurants, but last year we were allowed to extend out into the parking lot, and the town dropped us off Jersey barriers
Oh, yeah.
so
that's
that our
right.
outdoor dining was expanded. No, we weren't not allowed to do outdoor dining, but last year it was expanded until the end of October, beginning of November, for people that, just to accommodate more people outside.
Yeah, thanks, Christie.
Hey, Murray.
Yes, Mark.
I apologize if I missed it, but I think that one of the accommodations the town made during COVID was exactly this. So my question is what Kristen is talking about and others obviously want in Concord, does that require a zoning amendment? Is this a zoning issue, or is it really within the town manager's purview to grant an extension of what I think was a COVID related accommodation? I just don't know from a regulatory perspective exactly where we are today, whether that accommodation is still in full force, whether it's being rolled over, whether it was expired. Before we go too far down the path of trying to figure out what to ask for, obviously, I 100% agree with what Kristen is noting. I'm just wondering, from a regulatory standpoint, where are we today?
Well, the main reason Jen invited Kristen to speak to us today was not so much to go into the regulations of outdoor dining, but was more to discuss the fact that from March on, she was having trouble getting information. I'll be right with you, Dawn. With getting information from the town, whether it was a yes or no, but it was just sort of, in 5 instances, the ball was just kind of dropped. So it was that kind of feedback that Jen felt was important for us to have. That when a business wants to move forward with something, they're having trouble getting any kind of information from the planning, the town, the zoning, whoever it may be. They're not led to the right department to figure this issue out. So I don't think it's so much an issue with us as to if Kristen can have outdoor dining extended that she did during COVID, but the process she had to go through to get any kind of answer for it. And Dawn?
I think echoing what you were just saying, Marie, that it really is, I mean, Kristen said she felt like whoever she spoke to at the town didn't have the bandwidth, and so just kind of brushed it to the side. And that perception is really so important, that is countered, that doesn't exist, right? We want everyone to be heard and responded to, and to have a process in place for addressing any kind of concern. So for for Kristen or any retailer or restaurateur or potential retailer or restaurateur to be to walk away with the perception that they didn't have the bandwidth, they didn't care, that's really that's a poor reflection.
Right.
That is something we really need to counter with the way we present ourselves.
Yes.
We-
And Kristen has a comment here. Kristen?
Yeah, it just, also, this is something that hopefully we don't even need next year. It would have been nice to have this year. This year, there were still a lot of people that didn't want to come in unless they were guaranteed a patio seat, and both of our patios are just really, really small. Before COVID, people never really wanted to eat on the patio because there's always some kind of weird weather. Like, it was very, very rare that anybody wanted to ever eat on the patio, no matter what. And now after COVID, a lot of people always wanted to eat on the patio. So it was really something we just only needed this year. Hope we wouldn't need it next year. So, I mean, because it's not easy getting the Jersey barriers and bringing all the tables out there, and, it's difficult.
Sure.
But anyway, so it was just this year that we would have needed it. Don't need anyone.
But it's more, our committee is interested in the process
Okay.
of how that all happens and how the relations are between the businesses and the town government. Because, it's important for us to know that, so that we can, as we move forward, we know what areas to really pay attention to. And I think this is one of them. It's been mentioned several times during this meeting, is the customer service.
Okay. And it wasn't, I think it's zone, someone was asking about what department it was. I believe it was zoning that gave the additional number of seats. And then it was the year before, it came directly from the town manager's office saying, we invite you to expand your outdoor dining. So,
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Does anyone else have any other questions or comments for Kristen? I see no hands up. Kristen, we'd like to thank you for participating today and coming. And we all love your restaurant too, those of us that have been to it. So we will be back.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a
You're
good day.
welcome. I think that is a real reflection of what we have been trying to make amends for and trying to amend, is the customer service and the departments that businesses can go straight to get their questions answered. I know that the dining was approved, outdoor dining was approved for Concord this summer, but perhaps there was something different concerning Kristen's. Maybe she needed a larger spot. I was not able to, I tried to dig into it a little bit and I couldn't get answers as to what the parameters were, why she was not approved and everyone else was approved. I think Fiorella's and Main Street Cafe and Farfalle already had their spaces approved of long ago because they had small patio sections. So they just allowed them to put more tables out there. But again, I don't know the exact parameters of what happened there. And it's a shame because I know when I spoke to Kristen the other day, they had a large economic impact from that because people did not want to eat inside their restaurant. They wanted to eat outside and they only have 4 tables outside. So,
I think somebody,
Marie, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. It's just that I really have to go. I had a call from Orchard House in the middle of this, so I really have to go. I very quickly just wanted to say, it's just a thought. I would, if I were just doing it on my own, I would say, talk to Carrie right away. Have her come to the October meeting, have her hear this kind of discussion, even if we haven't done all of our, due diligence and have the points already, because I think this would be very valuable. If I were in Carrie's shoes, I would be so grateful to hear it at the soonest time rather than say, oh, we're not ready yet. So that's just my 2 cents. And I'm so sorry to have interrupted you. I didn't mean to
no,
do
it's
that
all
either.
right.
Yeah.
We value your input and I agree with you. I think that Carrie could, the bullet points could come up from input from the town and from the businesses. And
Right. So
Marcia.
that's just my 2 cents. And I'm sorry that I have to depart, but thank you all. You're just such a great
We only
group.
have a few more minutes, so that's good. Go deal
Bye-bye.
with that. Bye-bye. Dawn, you were saying?
well, I'll say something quickly. I'd
Oh,
like
Mike,
somebody
sorry.
ask her offline. We didn't need to do it online. Who exactly was spoken to at the townhouse? I'd like to know.
Right, when I
exactly.
asked her, she said Jay just went to the office. She was not
What
with
else?
him at the time. I'm not sure he paid attention to who he actually spoke with. I'm not sure, but I will follow up on that again. I had asked her that. Now she needs to maybe, come up or press him more for who he spoke with.
Yeah, I think so, and especially if we want Carrie to be to know about this, and I'm sure she
Right.
should know about it. I think we have to provide her with some more information because it sounds to me like it was a giant screw up,
Right.
as opposed to a process a procedure that was not a good one.
All right. Well, I think it was important to hear that, for whatever reason, just to give a business a chance to voice their concern and their, anxiety over what had gone on. It's important that, because then that helps them feel that something is going to move forward. Dawn?
It did sound like that was what Kristen wanted to convey, that she wasn't trying to resolve
Right,
in September why she can't have outdoor dining, but she wanted to communicate the frustration with the process and the lack of communication and her feeling, her perception of they just didn't have the time to deal with her.
Yeah.
And that
Right.
it sounded to me that that's what she was trying to get across, which is exactly what we've heard from perhaps other businesses trying to come into town. Like it's like in The Wizard of Oz, bring me the witch's broomstick. You don't know what the answer is.
right.
Come back the next day and you get a different answer. So
Um,
an example of
we had
that.
also invited, or Jen had invited the owner of the new restaurant moving in West Concord to come today, but he could not because he had a few similar issues, not with outdoor dining, but with some other issues that he, kept being pushed to a different department, and that department would say, we can't help you with that. So it is more of a frustration with getting answers than anything that these businesses wanted to they just want to be heard, and they want to know that someone is on their side and will help to facilitate other businesses moving forward, that it will not be so difficult for them. We are approaching in 2 minutes. I think no one else is from
Steve
the
has his
town.
hand up, but Steve, you're muted.
Gee, Joan tries to do that to me a lot of times. Uh, um, With the open meeting rules and so on, it's a little hard sometimes for a couple people to have ideas and put them into the next agenda. But we've heard 2 things today that should go in, I think. And one was Mike's suggestion about having a exit comment from Marcia. And then we thought we should invite Carrie in. So I don't know whether you can accommodate both those things or not, but I think they're both high priority.
I
I'm
agree
done.
with you. I think they both need to go on the agenda, and I think they pretty much need to, Jen can decide this, but I think they pretty much need to fill up the agenda so that we can have a lengthy discussion with both Carrie and with Marcia. I think that will help us to move forward in our roles for the EBC moving into 2023, and looking forward to a economic vitality officer. Thank you, Steve. Any other thoughts? I don't know when our next meeting, Jen?
Yeah, hi. So I've been listening to all this, and I know we're at the end of the meeting, but this is just absolutely maddening to me that this is so impossible, and I'm not even the one trying to do the business. I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but I just feel at a loss. Like, here I am wanting to help and figure this out, but what in the world can we do to make this not so challenging? I have to remember we're on video or we're being taped, but this just seems absurd. And I assume that this is what we're just hoping to get an officer in to work on, but is there anything we can be doing? Like, it just seems like, I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm frustrated and wanting to do something. And I feel like I come to these meetings all the time and then I leave with no idea of what I can do to help. And I just seems there's a lot to be done to make it easier to do business on things that should be easy enough and should not be this frustrating. Okay, getting off my soapbox.
No, that was good. Mark?
So joining Jen on her soapbox. So I think, Jen, I think that to take that passion and to sort of write down some bullet points, I think what we're trying to do is really fill the gap between now and the EVO coming on board. Unfortunately, Kristen's sort of experience is frustrating, is heart-wrenching, is disappointing, but it's not that uncommon. We hear it from prospective tenants. We hear it from a lot of the restaurateurs who are trying to do X, Y, Z. So I agree with Jen that this is frustrating, but unfortunately, that is a piece of what we're trying to tackle. And I think that if it's set up correctly, and the beauty of the EVO is we don't need to recreate the wheel. Burlington's doing it, Brookline's doing it, Lexington's doing it. So it's I don't want to say it's simple, but we know what the plan is, just follow the plan. And then it's up to the select board and Carrie to support that person and to make sure the right message and tone is sent and the customer service sort of message is crystal clear. So I think, Jen, if you're looking for stuff to do, I think just, there are bullet points that can be sent to Marie or sent to, whomever, to start thinking about how to fill the gap between now and when that person, the EVO, will start. And then if there are critical roles and responsibilities, that job descriptions that we think, are not in the letter that we sent, think about that. That's my 2 cents there. 2 other sort of administrative, I apologize, I was late to the meeting. I had a technical issue with my computer, but I do have a couple comments to the minutes. Can I send those via email or mark them up?
Yes,
And
we
then,
approve the minutes, but we can always amend it.
and then
at the next meeting.
secondly, I know in the past, these meetings have gone an hour and a half. I know it's a bummer, but I think that we need an hour and a half. An hour is just too short for this meeting, is my just my feeling.
I agree with you, because now at the end, we feel like we have to rush through things and we don't have time to discuss what has happened.
I would
And
even suggest that we think about meeting sooner than next month. I mean, is there any reason why we couldn't meet in 2 weeks and see if Carrie could join us? This sounds, again, I'm new to the committee, but it sounds like a significant issue that needs to be addressed. And I don't know why we couldn't move a little more quickly on this.
I think we could do that. I think we have to make sure that we have a quorum that is available to meet at that time. That would be the only issue for adding in another meeting. I think we can have as many there were times at the beginning of COVID, we met every, maybe confusing committees, but I believe we met every 2 weeks.
Well, I think I would suggest that somebody get on the horn to Carrie and find out when in the next couple of weeks she could be available. And then see if we can match that up with the committee and have a quorum.
I will be happy to call. I will call Carrie this afternoon and I will send her dates and recommendations to Jennifer.
Right.
Is everyone else amenable to meeting in a 2-week time frame
Yeah.
to discuss this? Dawn?
Yes.
In general, yes, it just depends on the day and the time, Marie.
Right.
I have
No, I
no,
get it.
I think meeting, because there's a lot of things about to change and we want to give input to that. I support meeting more frequently in these next few months. I think the challenge may be finding a meeting time.
That's right. Especially being fourth quarter for those of us in the retail world. Yeah. All right, so the synopsis for moving forward, the number 1 item is having a meeting with both Carrie and Marcia to discuss what the potential is for moving forward. Marcia would be kind of a wish list exit, almost interview, to find out, interview her, ask her what she believes could be either added in or how she believes what she thinks on the economic vitality officer, what role they need to take on that is part of, or what particular pieces they need to pay attention to that maybe has fallen into Marcia's lap, but that could fall into the economic vitality officer's role. And with with Carrie, we just want to have a discussion, let her know some feedback and find out what exactly it is, because we haven't discussed with Marcia what she feels this committee should do moving forward, what we should be responsible for her. Yes.
Are those 2 separate conversations? will, do you think that Marcia, you know, the conversation may flow more freely if they were separate conversations?
I think so. And it could either be done half of the meeting or part of the meeting, Marcia, and then part of the meeting, Carrie, and then we have a discussion after. And ask them to be there and then ask them to leave. I think on both points, even with Carrie, you know, she'll be more free to speak if other town officers are not there.
I
Anyone else?
think,
Steve?
I think it might be avoid any confrontational aspect if it was separate meetings.
Okay. So in that
Remember,
viewpoint,
it's open, it's an open meeting, so I mean, anybody can.
True.
it's true. Mark, did you have a comment? Did you raise your hand?
I did. I guess I had a question, and that is, Mary, do we have some potential new candidates for this committee as of yet? And I'm just wondering, I know that Jen has expressed her desire to step down as a chair. And I'm just wondering where, you know, is this a January 2023 issue going forward, or is it an issue for the next couple of months? I'm just wondering about composition of membership of this committee, if there are any holes that we need to address.
There are. I've talked to a few business people, retail and restaurateurs in town, and I have not been successful. And so I guess I'm reaching out to you to talk to people to ask them to join this committee. And it will really be up to you all who replaces or who succeeds Jennifer. So you're right, we need people on this committee. If you've got names that you think that talking with me would be helpful, let me know, and I will do my best to reach out to them. It's a problem all over. We started this meeting by talking about Ag Day, and Ag Day, the select board had a booth there specifically to try to recruit people into committees. So, you know, you might have to go forward and do the best work you can do without a full bench.
Well, because I think we are supposed to have 15,
No, I
And
think it's 13 actually.
13,
Yeah,
and
I looked it up. Yeah.
we have 11.
So yeah, it's, you know, the more the merrier. But like I said, I reached out to a few people and I wasn't successful. I think it might be better for you to talk to them because, you know, your colleagues, you know, the issues, you know, what's bothering them. So we need to work together to get that done.
Okay.
Mark, I believe it's on the Concord MA.gov. There's also a specific mix that
Yeah,
is required.
good
So
point.
we have to pay attention to the mix that is required
Yep.
on there for who we ask to be on. But you're right, we have to really look at that. And Dawn had suggested at one point that we put in the bylaw or in the recommendations that people because almost everyone's term is coming up. Actually, I think it's past. It may have been this past June that they be able to re-up for a year or two after their term is over.
In the charge. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Any other pieces here that we would like to discuss, or
If
Is
I
it
just
time for
want to say
adjournment?
if the composition of the committee from the charge that the select board wrote is an issue, you should go back to the select board and ask them to amend that composition.
sure, I don't think it's an issue. I just think we need to be aware of who, what roles have been filled so far and will be filled moving forward so that we don't, as we go out and attempt to recruit some committee members, we're not approaching the wrong businesses.
Got it.
All right. Anyone voting for adjournment here? And do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, do we all say aye?
Aye.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you. I will give all of this to Jen. She said she was going to watch the video and she will come forth with a new meeting time. We'll take Mike's recommendation and I will call Carrie today and find out her availability and forward that on to Jen. Thank you all for putting up with me and coming to the meeting and have a great week and weekend.
Thank you.
Thank
Mary.
you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye, all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.